Tonight, as you settle in and prepare for rest, you're about to embark on a journey unlike any other. Not across oceans or continents, but deep into the wisdom of ancient Buddhist teachings that have brought peace to troubled minds for thousands of years. This is not just a lesson to be learned, but an experience to be lived. As your breathing slows and your body relaxes, allow yourself to be transported to a place where time moves differently and where each moment holds profound meaning, where every experience, even the difficult ones, carries purpose. Let go of the day's worries. Release the tension in your body. For the next few hours, you'll discover why Buddhism teaches that everything, absolutely everything, happens for a reason. Welcome to Moon Mind Temple. Your journey begins now. You open your eyes at dawn in a small mountain monastery nestled among misty peaks. The air is crisp, fragrant, with pine and incense. You've traveled far to learn why your life seems filled with challenges that feel meaningless. Today, an elder monk has agreed to share ancient wisdom with you. As you sit on a worn meditation cushion, the monk smiles gently. You seek to understand why suffering finds you, he says, his voice as calm as still water. What if I told you that in Buddhism, nothing happens by chance? The wooden floors creak beneath you as you shift, trying to get comfortable. Like you, they too are subject to the law of impermanence. You notice how your breath creates small clouds in the cool morning air, appearing, then vanishing, just as everything in your life does. You think about the river you crossed to reach this place, how it never remains the same water from one moment to the next. Yet the river itself continues. The monk notices your gaze wandering toward the window. Your thoughts are like that river, he tells you, always flowing, never the same. This is anicca, impermanence, one of the fundamental truths of existence. Your mind drifts to memories that haunt you, opportunities lost, relationships ended, paths not taken. The weight of them sits heavy on your shoulders. The monk seems to read your thoughts. You are creating karma with every breath, he explains as sunlight begins to warm the room. Each action, thought, and word generates consequences that ripple outward, just as when you disturbed the surface of the river this morning. You remember the small stone you tossed into the water, how the rings expanded outward, touching everything in their path. Perhaps your life works the same way. The morning light strengthens, illuminating dust particles dancing in the air between you and the monk. His weathered face shows lines of both suffering and joy. Perhaps they are not so different after all. Tell me, he says, what troubles your heart most deeply? What has brought you across mountains to seek answers? You hesitate, organizing your thoughts. Life seems random, you finally reply. I try to live well, to make good choices, yet suffering still finds me. Others who seem careless or even cruel appear to prosper. Where is the justice in this? Where is the meaning? The monk nods slowly, as if he's heard this question 1,000 times. Perhaps he has. This apparent contradiction troubles many, he acknowledges. It's natural to seek patterns, to want fairness, to look for meaning in what happens to us. When life seems chaotic or unjust, we feel lost. He rises smoothly despite his age and gestures for you to follow. Walk with me. Some teachings are better understood in motion. You follow him through sliding paper doors into a corridor of polished wood. Morning sunlight streams through high windows, creating patterns of light and shadow that shift as you walk. Other monks pass silently, each focused on their morning tasks, yet somehow aware of everything around them. Buddhism teaches that we live in a universe governed by natural laws. The monk explains as you walk. Just as there are physical laws like gravity that operate whether we understand them or not, there are moral and spiritual laws that govern our experiences. The corridor opens onto a small courtyard garden, where stone pathways wind between carefully tended plants, miniature trees, and arrangements of rock and sand. A small stream flows through the center, its soft gurgling creating a gentle soundtrack to your conversation. The most fundamental of these laws is karma, the law of cause and effect. The monk continues, leading you along a stone path. Every action creates an effect. Every cause leads to consequences. Nothing happens without reason. You've heard of karma before, but often misunderstood as some cosmic system of rewards and punishments. Is karma like fate then, you ask? Are our lives predetermined? The monk shakes his head, stopping beside the stream. He kneels and invites you to do the same. Taking a small pebble, he drops it into the still pool formed where the stream widens. Perfect circles ripple outward from the point of impact. Karma is not fate, he explains. It is the natural law of cause and effect. The pebble creates ripples not because the water is punishing or rewarding it, but because this is the natural consequence of the action. Our choices create ripples in the same way. He takes your hand and places another small stone in your palm. Drop this into the water and try to create square ripples instead of circular ones. You smile at the impossible request, but drop the stone anyway. Circular ripples spread across the water's surface, just as before. You cannot change the law that governs how water responds, the monk says. Similarly, we cannot change the law that our actions have consequences. But unlike the stone, which has no choice about falling, we can choose which actions to take. This choice is our freedom. The concept begins to take shape in your mind, not a deterministic fate controlling your life, but a complex web of causes and effects, many set in motion by your own choices. If karma is real, you ask, why don't we see immediate consequences for actions? Why do good people suffer while harmful people sometimes prosper? The monk rises again and leads you further along the path. Karma does not always ripen immediately, he explains. Some seeds sprout quickly, others take seasons to bear fruit. The web of causes and conditions is vast and complex, stretching across time in ways our limited perspective cannot fully perceive. You pass a garden section where young monks are carefully transplanting seedlings. Their hands move with deliberate gentleness, aware that how they treat these young plants now will affect their growth for seasons to come. Like these gardeners, the monk continues, we are constantly planting seeds through our actions, speech, and even our thoughts. Some will bear fruit quickly, others may take years or even lifetimes to mature. But nothing is lost in the cosmic accounting. This perspective shifts something in your understanding. Perhaps life's apparent randomness is simply the result of causes too distant or complex for you to trace with your limited view. Think of karma as planting in a garden where some plants mature in days, others in seasons, and some over many years, the monk explains. A gardener who plants many varieties might be surprised by what emerges each day, yet nothing grows that wasn't planted. The path leads to a small meditation pavilion, overlooking the valley below. The monastery perches on the mountainside like a bird's nest, offering breathtaking views of the lands beyond. You sit together on a simple wooden bench, the world spread out at your feet. From here, we can see far, the monk observes. Villages, fields, rivers, forests, all connected in a living system. Yet even this expanded view is limited. We cannot see beyond the horizon or into the heart of the mountain. Our perspective on life is similarly limited. A cool mountain breeze carries the scent of pine and distant rain. You breathe deeply, feeling something begin to unwind inside you. A tension, perhaps, carried so long you'd forgotten it was there. From our limited vantage point, the monk continues, life often seems random or unfair. We see a fragment of the pattern and mistake it for the whole. We experience an effect without recognizing its cause, or plant a cause without living to see its effect. Birds soar in the valley below, riding invisible currents with effortless grace. They neither fight against the wind nor try to control it. They simply understand its nature and work with it. Buddhist teachings invite us to expand our perspective, the monk says, to recognize that our individual life is part of a vast, interconnected web of causes and conditions, stretch far beyond what we can perceive. Nothing happens in isolation. Everything is connected. You watch clouds casting moving shadows across the valley floor, a perfect visual metaphor for how conditions constantly change. This understanding does not remove life's challenges, the monk acknowledges, but it transforms how we experience them. Instead of seeing difficulties as random punishments or meaningless suffering, we recognize them as the natural unfolding of causes and conditions, many set in motion by our own past choices. A memory surfaces, a relationship that ended painfully after you ignored early warning signs. At the time, the breakup felt like cruel fate. Now you can recognize the chain of causes and effects that led naturally to that outcome. When we understand karma, the monk says, watching your realization, we stop seeing ourselves as victims of random fate and recognize our role in creating our experiences. This is not about blame, but about empowerment. If we have helped create our present circumstances through past choices, we can create different future circumstances through present choices. the liberation in this perspective dawns on you. Life's challenges are not meaningless punishment, but the natural consequences of causes. And if you can understand these causes, you can plant different seeds for the future. Everything happens for a reason, the monk reiterates. Not because some divine plan dictates it, but because the universe operates through this elegant law of cause and effect. Nothing is random. Nothing is wasted. Every experience carries meaning and purpose if we have eyes to see it. As midday approaches, the monastery bell rings, its clear tone resonating through the mountain air. The sound seems to both emerge from and return to silence, a beautiful demonstration of the principle being discussed. That bell signals our midday meal, the monk explains. Come, let's join the others. Eating mindfully is another opportunity to understand these teachings through direct experience. You walk together down stone steps leading back to the main monastery buildings. Monks gather from various areas, gardens, workshops, meditation halls, converging on the simple dining hall with unhurried purpose. Inside, low tables are arranged in neat rows. Monks sit on cushions before simple settings, a bowl, a cup, chopsticks wrapped in cloth. You're guided to a place along one wall where you can observe the ritual about to unfold. Once all are seated, a palpable silence falls. No one reaches for food, though steam rises temptingly from pots at the center of each table. The head monk recites a brief chant, which the others join, voices blending in practiced harmony. This chant expresses gratitude. Your teacher explains quietly when it concludes. Gratitude for the food, for those who grew it, transported it, prepared it, and serve it. Recognizing the vast web of causes and conditions that brings even this simple meal to us. Only then does the serving begin, an orderly, mindful process. Each person receives the same modest portions in their bowl. No one begins eating until all are served. Before we eat, the monk instructs you, look deeply at your food. Consider its journey. The seed that grew with the help of sun and rain. The farmer who tended and harvested it. The many hands that brought it here. See the entire universe in your bowl. You look at your simple meal with new eyes, rice, vegetables, a small portion of tofu. Indeed, when you consider everything required to create this food and bring it before you, it becomes extraordinary. Sunlight transformed through photosynthesis into nourishment. Rain that fell because of complex weather patterns. Countless beings whose work contributed to this moment. Now, eat with full awareness, the monk suggests. Notice the texture, temperature, and flavor of each bite. Chew slowly, experiencing the food completely. This is mindfulness, being fully present with what is. The dining hall remains quiet, except for the subtle sounds of eating. No conversation, no distraction. Just complete presence with the act of nourishment. You try to follow this example, surprised at how different food tastes when given your full attention. Flavors seem more vivid, textures more interesting. Even simple rice becomes complex and satisfying when not eaten on autopilot. This mindful eating, the monk explains between careful bites, demonstrates another aspect of Buddhist wisdom. When we are fully present, we discover that ordinary experiences contain extraordinary depth. The present moment, fully experienced, is infinitely rich. You notice how different this feels from your usual meals, often eaten quickly while distracted by screens, conversations, or thoughts about past and future. How much richness have you missed by not being present? Many people rush through life never fully experiencing it, the monk observes. They are physically present for countless precious moments, but mentally absent, lost in thoughts about the past or future. Mindfulness brings you back to the only moment that truly exists now. As the meal concludes, each person cleans their bowl with a piece of pickled vegetable, then wipes it clean with a cloth. Not a grain of rice is wasted. Even the washing water will be poured into the garden. Everything has purpose in this mindful ecosystem. In mindfulness practice, the monk explains, as you follow these cleaning rituals, we discover that life's meaning isn't hidden in some grand future achievement or past glory. It's found in the depth of our presence with what is happening right now. After the meal, while most monks return to their various duties, your teacher invites you to the meditation hall. Unlike the bustling activity of morning and mealtime, the large hall is nearly empty now, a peaceful space for afternoon practice. Meditation is central to understanding these teachings, the monk explains as you settle onto cushions facing one another. Not as an intellectual exercise, but as direct experience. Sunlight filters through paper windows, creating a soft, diffuse illumination. The hall smells of wood polish and subtle incense. Outside, birds call occasionally, but the primary sensation is one of profound stillness. Proper posture helps calm the mind, he instructs. Sit with your back straight, but not rigid, like a mountain, dignified and stable. Rest your hands in your lap or on your knees. Lower your gaze or close your eyes if that's more comfortable. You adjust your position following his guidance, surprised at how such simple adjustments create a feeling of alertness combined with ease. Now, bring your attention to your breath, he continues, his voice soft yet clear. Not controlling it, just observing the natural rhythm. Feel the sensations of breathing, the air moving through your nostrils, the rising and falling of your chest and abdomen. You follow these instructions, immediately noticing how difficult it is to keep attention on something so simple. Your mind wants to wander, planning future activities, replaying past conversations, analyzing, judging, daydreaming. The monk seems to read your thoughts. Each time you notice your mind has wandered, gently bring your attention back to your breath. This returning is the practice. Every time you notice distraction and come back, you're strengthening your mindfulness muscle. You practice for several minutes, repeatedly catching your mind wandering and returning to breath awareness. It's humbling to realize how rarely your mind stays where you direct it. The untrained mind is like a wild elephant, the monk explains. Powerful but uncontrolled, causing damage even when it means well. Meditation is how we gradually tame this elephant, training it to serve rather than control us. A fly buzzes near your ear, immediately capturing your attention. The monk smiles. Notice how easily distractions pull you away. This is normal. The mind naturally moves toward what's novel or potentially threatening. With practice, you'll develop the ability to acknowledge distractions without being captured by them. You return to your breath, now noticing subtle details, the slight pause between inhale and exhale, the cooling sensation of air entering your nostrils, the warming as it leaves. As concentration deepens, the monk says after some time, you begin to observe not just the breath, but the nature of experience itself. You notice how sensations, thoughts, and emotions arise, exist for a time, then pass away. Nothing stays fixed. Everything is in constant flux. This observation connects to your earlier discussions about impermanence. You can see it now in your own direct experience, how each breath, each thought, each sensation appears and disappears like waves on the surface of a vast ocean. This direct perception of impermanence, the monk continues, is crucial to understanding why everything happens for a reason. When you see clearly how one thing leads to another in the stream of your own consciousness, you begin to recognize this pattern in all of existence. A thought arises. Perhaps your entire life follows this same pattern of causes and conditions flowing together, creating the present moment that will in turn condition what comes next. Exactly, the monk says, again, seeming to read your mind. Your life unfolds according to this same natural law. Each moment arises because of countless causes and conditions coming together. Nothing happens randomly. Everything has a reason, a set of causes that brought it into being. You sit with this understanding, feeling it settle not just as an intellectual concept, but as a felt reality. Your current situation, sitting in this monastery, seeking these teachings, didn't happen by chance, but resulted from countless prior choices, experiences, and conditions all flowing together to create this moment. As you continue meditating, the monk instructs, expand your awareness beyond the breath to include your body sensations, emotions, thoughts, and eventually the environment around you. Observe how all these aspects of experience arise and pass according to conditions. You practice this wider awareness, noticing the subtle interplay of experience, how a sound triggers a thought, which prompts an emotion, which creates a physical sensation, all flowing into one another, like tributary streams joining a river. This interconnected flow, the monk explains, is what Buddhists call dependent origination, the understanding that everything arises in dependence on multiple causes and conditions. Nothing exists independently. Nothing happens without reason. As your meditation deepens, time seems to stretch and contract in unusual ways. What might be minutes feels like hours. What might be an hour passes in what seems like moments. This too is part of the teaching, how even our perception of time is conditioned rather than absolute. Eventually, the monk gently brings the session to a close. Enough for now, he says. The body needs movement after stillness. Let's walk in the garden and continue our exploration. You rise, noticing stiffness in your legs, but also a peculiar clarity in your mind. Colors seem more vivid, sounds more distinct. The simple act of walking feels new when approached with full awareness. Outside, afternoon sun warms the stone pathways. The monastery gardens are meticulously maintained, not in the controlled, artificial manner of some formal gardens, but in a way that works with nature rather than imposing upon it. These gardens demonstrate another aspect of Buddhist wisdom, the monk explains as you walk. The gardeners don't fight against the natural tendencies of the plants or the conditions of the mountain. They understand these factors and work with them. You pass a twisted pine that has been carefully pruned over decades to accentuate rather than correct its natural inclination to grow sideways from the rocky soil. This is the middle way that Buddhism teaches, he continues. Not forcing reality to meet our demands, not passively surrendering to conditions, but skillfully working with what is. The garden path leads to a small pond where lotus flowers float on the surface. Some are fully bloomed in magnificent pink and white displays. Others remain tightly closed buds. Still, others are just beginning to open. The lotus is a perfect symbol for the Buddha's teaching, the monk says, stopping beside the pond. It grows from the mud at the bottom, rises through murky water, and blooms immaculately on the surface. Similarly, our awakening emerges from the very conditions of our ordinary lives, including difficulties and suffering. You watch a dragonfly land delicately on a lotus leaf, creating the slightest dimple in the water's surface, which sends tiny ripples outward, another demonstration of how all things affect one another. Which brings us to another essential teaching, the monk says. The purpose of understanding that everything happens for a reason. He finds a bench nearby where you both sit, overlooking the pond. The afternoon light has that golden quality that photographers call the magic hour, casting everything in a warm glow. Many people, when first hearing about karma and cause and effect, become anxious, he explains. They worry about past mistakes creating future suffering. They try to control every action, fearful of negative consequences. But this misses the deeper purpose of the teaching. A gentle breeze stirs the surface of the pond, creating dancing patterns of light and shadow. The purpose isn't to make you afraid or to create another burden of perfectionism, the monk continues. It's to empower you with the understanding that you participate in creating your reality, that many aspects of your experience, especially your responses to what happens, remain within your choice. You consider this perspective, not karma as cosmic punishment, but as a natural law that, once understood, can be worked with skillfully. When difficulties arise, and they will, this understanding helps you respond with greater wisdom, he explains. Instead of asking, why me? Or, how can I escape this? You can ask, what can I learn from this? And how can I respond in a way that creates more positive conditions moving forward? You think about challenges in your own life and how different they might appear when viewed not as random misfortunes but as the natural consequences of causes and conditions, many of which you participated in creating. This doesn't mean blaming yourself for suffering, the monk emphasizes. noting your thoughtful expression. Self-blame is just another form of ego, grasping. Rather, it means recognizing your power to plant different seeds now, creating different future conditions. A frog jumps from the bank into the pond with a small splash, disappearing beneath the surface. Circles ripple outward from the point of entry, gradually expanding to touch all parts of the pond. See how that small action affects the entire pond, the monk observes. Your actions, too, create ripples far beyond what you can immediately observe. Understanding this inspires greater mindfulness about the seeds you plant through your choices. As you continue your walk through the monastery grounds, you come upon an elderly monk carefully tending a bonsai tree. His gnarled hands, marked by decades of work, move with surprising delicacy around the miniature pine. He acknowledges your presence with a slight nod, but remains focused on his task. Your teacher stops to observe the old gardener's work. Brother Chen has been training this particular tree for over 40 years, he explains quietly. Observe his relationship with it, not imposing his will, but deeply understanding the tree's nature and working with it. You watch as the old monk makes a tiny adjustment to a branch, securing it with almost invisible wire. His expression shows neither impatience nor hurry, just complete absorption in the present task. This is what the Buddha called right action, your teacher continues. Acting with full awareness, understanding causes and conditions, responding to what is with skillful intention rather than habitual reaction. The elderly monk finishes his adjustment and steps back, studying the tree from different angles before nodding with subtle satisfaction. He notices your interest and beckons you closer. Would you like to try? He asks, his voice surprisingly strong despite his age. He offers you a pair of small scissors for precise trimming. You hesitate, afraid of damaging something that has been cultivated for decades. I don't know how, you admit. The old monk smiles. No one does at first. We learn by doing, by making mistakes, by trying again. This too is the way of life. With trepidation, you accept the scissors. The bonsai master points to a small shoot growing from the trunk. This one needs to be removed. It disrupts the tree's balance. You carefully position the scissors around the tiny shoot, conscious of both monks watching you. With a small snip, the shoot is removed. The old monk nods approvingly. Good. You removed it cleanly, without damaging the bark. The tree will heal well. He takes back the scissors and bows slightly before returning to his work. As you walk away, your teacher explains, that small interaction contains much wisdom. Notice how you were afraid to act for fear of making a mistake. How many opportunities in life have you missed because of similar fear? You reflect on times you've hesitated, playing it safe rather than risking error. Also notice how Brother Chen created a safe space for you to try, guiding without controlling, allowing you the dignity of your own experience while preventing serious harm. This is how wise teachers function. The path winds upward now, leading to a viewpoint higher on the mountain. The climb requires more effort, and conversation pauses as you both focus on the ascent. The physical exertion feels good after periods of sitting meditation. The body too teaches wisdom. The monk observes as you climb. Notice how it naturally finds efficient ways to move on this uneven path. It doesn't fight gravity or terrain, but works with these conditions. You realize you've been unconsciously adjusting your gait to the mountain path, shorter steps on the steeper sections, shifting weight differently on loose versus solid ground. Your body intuitively understands how to respond to conditions. Our bodies often know what our thinking minds forget, the monk continues. They remember how to flow with conditions rather than fight against them. This natural wisdom is what Buddhist practice helps us recover in all aspects of life. You reach a flat area that offers a spectacular view of the valley below and mountains beyond. The afternoon sun casts long shadows across the landscape, emphasizing the contours of the land. From this height, patterns become visible that couldn't be seen from below, the way rivers follow natural depressions, how forests grow in certain patterns determined by soil and sun exposure. From here, we gain perspective, the monk says, as you both catch your breath. Similarly, Buddhist teachings offer a vantage point from which to observe life's patterns. We begin to recognize how certain actions consistently lead to certain results. You notice how the monastery itself is positioned to work with the mountain's natural features, nestled into a protected area, oriented to capture sunlight, situated near natural springs. Nothing fights against the conditions. Everything works harmoniously with what is. When you understand that everything happens for a reason, arising from causes and conditions, you stop fighting reality, the monk explains. Instead, like the monastery architects, you learn to work skillfully with conditions as they are. A hawk circles overhead, riding thermal currents with minimal effort. It doesn't fight against the air, but understands intuitively how to use these invisible patterns to soar. This is the freedom Buddhist practice offers, the monk says, watching the hawk. Not freedom from conditions, that's impossible, but freedom within conditions. The wisdom to navigate life's currents like that hawk, with minimal struggle and maximal harmony. The sun begins its descent toward the western mountains, casting longer shadows across the landscape. Your teacher suggests heading back to the monastery for the evening meditation and meal. The downhill journey requires different muscles and different awareness than the climb up. Notice how descending presents its own challenges. The monk observes as you carefully navigate a steep section. In life too, success and achievement can sometimes be as challenging to navigate skillfully as difficulty and struggle. You consider this wisdom, how reaching goals or obtaining desires doesn't automatically bring lasting happiness. Sometimes achieving what you thought you wanted creates unexpected new challenges. The Buddha taught that attachment to outcomes, even positive ones, creates suffering. The monk continues. When we cling to how we think things should be rather than working skillfully with how they are, we create inner conflict. Back at the monastery, preparations for evening activities are underway. One monk strikes a large bell, its resonant tone signaling the transition from day's work to evening practice. Others light lanterns as daylight begins to fade. Before evening meditation, your teacher says, I want to address another aspect of why everything happens for a reason. This concerns how we respond to life's difficulties. He leads you to a small side garden where stone lanterns create pools of warm light in the gathering dusk. The atmosphere is peaceful, conducive to deeper conversation. Throughout life, everyone faces challenges that seem meaningless or unfair. He begins. Illness, loss, betrayal, failure, experiences that can make us question whether life has purpose at all. You think about your own difficult experiences, times when suffering seemed random and cruel. Buddhist wisdom doesn't claim that suffering doesn't exist or doesn't matter, the monk clarifies. The Buddha's first noble truth acknowledges that suffering is real. But this teaching offers a perspective that transforms how we relate to difficulty. A cool evening breeze stirs the garden, carrying the scent of pine and distant rain. You draw your robe closer around your shoulders. When we understand that everything happens according to causes and conditions, he continues, we stop seeing difficulties as random punishments. Instead, we recognize them as the natural unfolding of complex processes, many influenced by our own past choices and current responses. This perspective shifts something fundamental, from seeing yourself as a helpless victim of circumstance to recognizing your role in both creating and responding to conditions. More importantly, the monk adds, this understanding reveals that difficulties themselves have purpose. They are not meaningless even when painful. They offer precisely the conditions needed for certain kinds of growth that couldn't happen otherwise. He reaches down to pick up a small stone from the garden path, smooth and rounded from years of exposure to elements. This stone was once rough and angular, he explains, placing it in your palm. Through friction with water and other stones, it gradually became smooth. What might have seemed like damage, being tumbled and scraped, actually revealed its inherent beauty. You feel the stone's perfect smoothness, understanding the metaphor. Perhaps life's friction serves a similar purpose, wearing away rough edges to reveal something more essential underneath. The most difficult experiences often create the conditions for our greatest growth, the monk continues. Not because suffering itself is good, but because it challenges our habitual patterns and forces us to develop new capacities. You reflect on how your own challenging experiences, painful as they were, led to important insights and developments that might not have happened otherwise. When facing difficulty, he advises, try shifting from, why is this happening to me, to, what might this be preparing me for? What qualities is this helping me develop? This simple reframing transforms how you experience challenges. The garden lanterns glow more prominently as daylight continues to fade. Their warm light seems to represent the wisdom that can illuminate even the darkest experiences. Everything happens for a reason, the monk reiterates. Not because of some predetermined plan, but because each experience arises from causes and conditions, and simultaneously creates conditions for what comes next. Nothing is random. Nothing is wasted. Everything serves your development if you have eyes to see it. The monastery bell rings again, signaling the evening meditation session. You follow your teacher to the main hall where monks gather, taking their places on cushions arranged in neat rows. Candles and incense create an atmosphere conducive to inner exploration. For this evening practice, the monk explains quietly as you settle onto your cushion. We'll focus on cultivating equanimity, the quality of mind that remains balanced regardless of whether experiences are pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. You adjust your posture, finding the now familiar balance between alertness and relaxation. The day's conversations and experiences have prepared you for deeper practice. Begin by bringing awareness to your breath, the monk instructs. Allow your breathing to find its natural rhythm without forcing or controlling. Simply observe the sensations of breathing with gentle attention. Around you, the other monks sit in perfect stillness, their collective presence creating a palpable field of concentrated awareness. You close your eyes, tuning into your breath as instructed. As your mind settles, the teacher continues in a soft voice that somehow carries throughout the hall. Expand your awareness to include sensations in your body. Notice areas of comfort or discomfort without trying to change them. Simply be aware. You scan your body, noticing various sensations. Pressure, where you contact the cushion, a slight ache in your lower back, warmth in your hands, coolness on your face. Each sensation simply is what it is, neither good nor bad in itself. Now notice your emotional state, the monk guides. Are you feeling calm, anxious, peaceful, impatient? Whatever emotions are present, allow them to be without judgment or resistance. You discover a mixture of feelings, interest in these new teachings, a lingering uneasiness about problems back home, appreciation for this unusual opportunity. The instruction to observe without judgment helps you see these emotions as passing experiences rather than defining realities. Expand your awareness further to include thoughts passing through your mind, the monk continues. Watch them arise and pass without getting caught in their stories. See them as clouds moving through the sky of your awareness. This practice reveals how busy your mind remains, despite the peaceful environment. Plans, memories, questions, judgments, a constant stream of mental activity. Yet with growing mindfulness, you can observe this stream without being swept away by it. Now, the monk says after several minutes of this observation, contemplate the nature of equanimity. When pleasant experiences arise, notice any tendency to grasp or cling to them. When unpleasant experiences arise, notice any tendency to resist or avoid them. When neutral experiences arise, notice any tendency toward boredom or seeking distraction. You observe these tendencies in your own mind, how certain sensations, emotions, or thoughts trigger automatic reactions of attraction or aversion. Equanimity is the balance that comes from understanding that all experiences, pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral, arise according to conditions and will pass away according to conditions, the monk explains. Nothing needs to be grasped. Nothing needs to be pushed away. Everything can simply be known with clear awareness. This teaching connects directly to your earlier discussions about impermanence and cause and effect. If everything arises due to conditions and will pass away when conditions change, then clinging to pleasant experiences or fighting against unpleasant ones makes little sense. When we truly understand that everything happens for a reason, the monk continues, equanimity develops naturally. We stop taking experiences so personally. We recognize that pleasant and unpleasant alike arise from complex causes and conditions, not because we deserve reward or punishment. This perspective offers a profound freedom from the exhausting cycle of craving pleasant experiences and avoiding unpleasant ones. Perhaps peace comes not from controlling what happens, but from how you relate to whatever happens. As we sit in these final minutes, the monk instructs, practice meeting each arising experience, whether sensation, emotion, or thought, with this balanced awareness. Not preferring, not rejecting, just knowing with clarity. The hall falls silent, except for the occasional sounds of breathing and distant temple bells. You practice as instructed, watching the parade of sensations, emotions, and thoughts with growing equanimity. When pleasant experiences arise, you observe without clinging. When unpleasant experiences arise, you observe without rejecting. When neutral experiences arise, you observe without seeking distraction. Something subtle shifts in your awareness, a spaciousness that wasn't there before. It's as if you're watching the weather of your inner experience without being stormed upon by it. This doesn't remove the experiences themselves, but transforms your relationship to them. After what might be minutes or might be much longer, time seems fluid in deep meditation. A small bell rings 3 times, signaling the end of the formal practice. The monk's voice returns, gentle yet clear. As we conclude this evening meditation, recognize that the awareness you've cultivated is always available to you. In every circumstance, pleasant or difficult, you can access this equanimity, this understanding that all experiences arise from causes and conditions and will pass according to their nature. You open your eyes slowly, the meditation hall coming back into focus. Candles flicker, creating dancing shadows on the walls. Other monks begin to stir, some stretching subtly after the period of stillness. Carry this practice into your evening activities, the monk suggests. Notice how experiences continue to arise and pass according to conditions. Notice your habitual reactions of grasping and rejecting. See if you can maintain this balanced awareness through changing circumstances. After meditation, the monastery follows a simple evening routine. A light meal is served in the same mindful manner as lunch. Afterward, some monks gather in small groups for quiet conversation, while others retire to their quarters for study or rest. Your teacher invites you to join him for tea in a small room overlooking the monastery garden. Lanterns illuminate the pathways below where a few monks still move about, completing evening tasks. The tea is served simply, just hot water poured over green leaves in small, unadorned cups. No sugar, no milk, nothing to mask the natural flavor. The monk encourages you to approach this ordinary activity with the same mindfulness practiced in meditation. Receive the cup with both hands, he demonstrates. Feel its warmth. Notice the aroma rising with the steam. Observe the color of the liquid. Take a small sip, experiencing the taste fully before swallowing. You follow his guidance, surprised by how much sensory information is available in this simple act when given full attention. The tea's subtle bitterness, its grassy notes, the way the warmth spreads through your mouth and throat, experiences usually missed when drinking automatically. Most people move through life missing its richness, the monk observes. They eat without tasting, look without seeing, listen without hearing. Their minds are always elsewhere, reviewing the past or anticipating the future. They miss the only moment that truly exists, now. You consider how often you've been physically present but mentally absent in your own life, missing countless moments because your attention was scattered. This mindfulness practice, he continues, is essential to understanding why everything happens for a reason. When we're not present, we miss the subtle connections between causes and effects. We plant seeds without awareness, then are surprised by what grows. The simple room, illuminated by a single lantern, creates an atmosphere of intimacy conducive to deeper conversation. Outside, night has fully descended. Stars appear in the clear mountain sky, visible through the open window. Before you rest tonight, the monk says, I want to address a common misunderstanding about Buddhist teachings on cause and effect. He takes another sip of tea, giving you time to settle into this new topic. Many people, upon hearing that everything happens for a reason according to karma, conclude that victims of misfortune must have done something to deserve their suffering. This is a grave misunderstanding that creates additional harm. His eyes meet yours with particular intensity. This point clearly matters to him deeply. The law of karma is not about deserving or not deserving, he clarifies. It's about understanding how causes lead to effects through natural processes. A child born into poverty or someone suffering from illness hasn't done anything to deserve this situation in a moral sense. You feel relief at this clarification, having wondered about this troubling implication. These conditions arise from countless causes stretching back through time, most beyond any individual's control or choice. Understanding karma should lead to greater compassion for those facing difficulty, not judgment or dismissal of their suffering. The monk pours a little more tea into your cup. The simple gesture feels like a metaphor for how one action naturally flows into another. True understanding of cause and effect recognizes our profound interconnection, he continues. No one exists in isolation. Your actions affect others, their actions affect you. We are all contributing to the conditions each person experiences. This perspective shifts the focus from individual blame to collective responsibility, recognizing how social systems, cultural patterns, and shared environments shape individual experiences. When we see someone suffering, the monk says, the appropriate response is not, they must have created this karma, but rather, how can I contribute to more positive conditions for this person now? You think about people in your own life facing challenges, how this understanding might transform your response from judgment to compassionate action. This teaching that everything happens for a reason is not meant to explain away suffering or justify injustice, the monk emphasizes. It's meant to empower us to create more skillful causes for everyone's benefit. The tea has cooled now, revealing different subtle flavors than when hot. Even this simple experience demonstrates impermanence and changing conditions. As you integrate these teachings, the monk advises, use them to increase compassion, not judgment. Use them to take greater responsibility for your choices, not to dismiss the struggles of others. Use them to create positive conditions moving forward, not to dwell on regrets about the past. Outside, the monastery is growing quieter as monks complete evening routines and prepare for rest. The rhythmic sound of a wooden fish being struck signals the final activities of the day. Tomorrow we will explore more aspects of these teachings, the monk says, finishing his tea. For now, rest and allow what we've discussed to settle into your understanding. He leads you back to the simple guest quarters, where a sleeping mat has been prepared. The room is austere, but comfortable, containing only what is necessary. The mat, a small table with a candle, a cushion for sitting, a pitcher of water with a cup. Before sleeping, the monk suggests, practice a brief reflection on your day. Review significant moments without judgment, simply noticing patterns of cause and effect in your experiences and responses. This instruction reminds you of the evening meditation practice, observing without grasping or rejecting, simply knowing with clarity. Also set an intention for how you wish to meet tomorrow, he adds. Not rigid expectations about what should happen, but an aspiration for how you will respond to whatever conditions arise. The monk lights the candle on your table, creating a small circle of warm light in the simple room. Rest well, he says with a gentle bow. Remember, everything that happens, even in dreams, arises from causes and conditions and offers teaching if we have eyes to see it. With these words, he leaves you to your evening contemplation. You sit for a time on the cushion, following his suggestion to review the day's experiences and teachings. So much has been shared in this single day: impermanence, karma, mindfulness, equanimity, all aspects of the central understanding that everything happens for a reason, according to natural laws of cause and effect. The teachings feel both profoundly simple and endlessly deep. You notice how your mind tries to grasp these concepts, to solidify them into fixed views. Even this grasping is an instructive demonstration of what the Buddha identified as the cause of suffering, the mind's tendency to cling to ideas, experiences, and outcomes, rather than flowing with the natural unfolding of conditions. As the candle burns lower, you prepare for sleep, arranging yourself comfortably on the simple mat. Though physically harder than your bed at home, there's something satisfying about its firm support, another small lesson in how expectations about comfort can be adjusted with awareness. Lying in darkness now, you notice how the mind continues its activities, even as the body relaxes towards sleep. Thoughts arise about the day's experiences, questions form about tomorrow, memories surface from home, plans take shape for applying these teachings in daily life. Rather than getting caught in this mental activity, you remember the instruction to observe with equanimity. Each thought is just another passing condition, arising according to causes, existing temporarily, then dissolving to make way for the next experience. As your awareness begins to shift towards sleep, the boundary between conscious thought and dreaming grows more permeable. In this liminal space, the day's teachings continue to work within you, rearranging your understanding beyond conscious effort. Your last coherent thought before drifting into sleep is a recognition that everything, absolutely everything, happens for a reason. Not by chance, not by cruel fate, but as part of an intelligent unfolding that invites you to grow in wisdom and compassion with each experience. Sleep comes easily, deeper, and more peaceful than usual. For the first time in longer than you can remember, you're not fighting against reality, but learning to flow with it. Morning arrives with the gentle sound of temple bells and the first light of dawn filtering through paper windows. For a moment upon waking, you're disoriented. The unfamiliar room, the firm sleeping mat, the quality of light different from home. Then memory returns. You're in a mountain monastery, learning ancient wisdom about why everything happens for a reason. You sit up, taking the monk's advice to begin the day mindfully. 3 conscious breaths ground you in the present moment. You set an intention to meet whatever the day brings with openness and awareness, rather than expectation or resistance. A soft knock at your door announces a young monk who silently presents a basin of warm water for washing. The simple courtesy feels deeply considerate after the cool mountain night. You wash your face and hands, giving full attention to these ordinary activities as practice in mindfulness. Outside your quarters, the monastery is already active. Monks move purposefully about their morning duties, sweeping pathways, tending gardens, preparing the morning meal. There's an atmosphere of collective harmony, each person contributing to the whole without apparent ego or conflict. Your teacher from yesterday appears, greeting you with a small bow. "Did you rest well?" he asks. "Very well," you respond, surprised to realize it's true. Despite the strange surroundings and simple accommodations, you feel remarkably rested. Good. The quiet mind sleeps deeply. He observes. Today we will continue exploring why everything happens for a reason, focusing on how this understanding transforms our response to life's more challenging aspects. The morning follows the monastery's established rhythm: meditation, a simple breakfast eaten mindfully, brief periods of work contributing to the community. These activities aren't interruptions to the teaching, but integral parts of it, opportunities to practice presence and mindfulness in ordinary actions. By mid-morning, you join your teacher in the same garden where you began yesterday's exploration. The day is clear and cool, the rising sun warming the stone bench where you sit. Yesterday we discussed how everything arises from causes and conditions. The monk begins. Today, I want to explore how this understanding helps us work with one of life's greatest challenges: suffering. A butterfly passes between you, its delicate wings catching the sunlight. Its brief visitation seems to perfectly illustrate the transient nature of all phenomena. The Buddha's central teaching addressed suffering directly. The monk continues. He didn't promise to eliminate life's difficulties, but he offered a path to transform our relationship with them. This path begins with understanding why suffering occurs. You think about your own experiences of suffering, from minor irritations to profound losses, and the various ways you've tried to escape or overcome them, often without lasting success. Most people respond to suffering in one of 3 ways, the monk explains. They try to escape it through distraction or denial. They fight against it, creating additional suffering through resistance. Or they resign themselves to it, falling into helplessness or despair. These patterns sound familiar. You've experienced all three at different times. Buddhist wisdom offers a fourth way. He continues, we learn to meet suffering with clear awareness, understanding its causes and conditions, responding with wisdom rather than reaction. A memory surfaces, a painful relationship breakup you experienced years ago. You recall cycling through exactly these responses, trying to numb the pain through distractions, fighting against reality by attempting to win the person back, eventually sinking into temporary despair when these efforts failed. Consider a difficult experience from your own life, the monk suggests, seemingly reading your thoughts again. Notice how suffering arose not just from the situation itself, but from how you related to it. You reflect on that relationship ending. The initial event was painful, certainly, but you can now see how much additional suffering came from your resistance, demanding reality be different than it was, taking the situation personally, as if the universe were punishing you specifically, creating elaborate stories about what the experience meant about your worth or future. When we understand that everything happens for a reason according to causes and conditions, the monk explains, we stop taking difficulties so personally. We recognize that painful situations arise not to punish us, but as the natural unfolding of complex processes, many beyond anyone's conscious control. This perspective offers a curious freedom, not from the pain itself, but from the additional layers of suffering created by resistance, personalization, and elaborate meaning-making. This doesn't mean we become passive or indifferent, the monk clarifies, perhaps noticing a question forming in your mind. Understanding causes and conditions actually empowers us to respond more effectively. Instead of wasting energy fighting against what has already happened, we can focus on creating more skillful conditions moving forward. The sun has risen higher now, its warmth more pronounced on your face and hands. Even this simple sensation demonstrates the teaching. Conditions constantly change, creating new experiences moment by moment. Let me share a story that illustrates this approach to suffering, the monk says, settling more comfortably on the stone bench. It concerns a farmer whose experience demonstrates the wisdom of meeting life's events with equanimity rather than rapid judgment. You prepare to listen, sensing that stories sometimes convey wisdom more effectively than abstract explanations. There once was a farmer who had worked his crops for many years. The monk begins. One day, his horse ran away. Upon hearing the news, his neighbors came to visit. Such bad luck, they said sympathetically. Maybe, the farmer replied. The next morning, the horse returned, bringing with it 3 other wild horses. How wonderful, the neighbors exclaimed. Maybe, replied the old man. The following day, his son tried to ride one of the untamed horses, was thrown, and broke his leg. The neighbors again came to offer their sympathy on his misfortune. Maybe, answered the farmer. The day after, military officials came to the village to draft young men into the army. Seeing that the son's leg was broken, they passed him by. The neighbors congratulated the farmer on how well things had turned out. Maybe, said the farmer. The monk pauses, letting the story settle into your understanding. "What does this simple tale teach us?" he asks. You consider the farmer's consistent response to both good and bad events. He doesn't rush to judgment, you observe. He doesn't assume he can immediately know whether something is fortunate or unfortunate. "Exactly," the monk nods approvingly. The farmer has the wisdom to see that no event can be fully understood in isolation. What seems like misfortune today may reveal itself as blessing tomorrow. What appears as good luck may lead to unexpected difficulty. This perspective challenges your habitual thinking. How often have you immediately categorized experiences as good or bad without seeing their fuller context or longer-term implications? This is not about becoming passive or fatalistic, the monk clarifies. The farmer still takes appropriate action in each situation, but he does so without the additional burden of emotional reactivity based on limited judgment. A question forms in your mind. But doesn't this approach risk indifference? Shouldn't we celebrate joy and acknowledge sorrow? The monk smiles, appreciating your engagement. Good question. This equanimity isn't about suppressing natural human emotions or becoming coldly detached. It's about not being controlled by emotions that arise from our limited interpretations. He gestures toward the monastery gardens, where other monks continue their morning activities, some working with plants, others sweeping pathways, a few carrying supplies between buildings. "Look at my brothers working there," he says. They experience the full range of human emotions, joy in beauty, disappointment in failure, satisfaction in completion. But they work with these emotions rather than being controlled by them, understanding that all experiences arise from causes and conditions and will transform as conditions change. This balanced approach seems both wiser and more sustainable than your usual emotional reactivity, celebrating good events while resisting bad ones, as if your preferences should determine reality. When we truly understand that everything happens for a reason, the monk continues, emotional balance develops naturally. We still feel joy and sorrow, pleasure and pain, but we don't amplify suffering through resistance or create future disappointment through attachment. A small bird lands near your feet, pecking at something in the garden soil before flying off again. Its brief visit, neither good nor bad in itself, simply part of the natural unfolding of conditions, provides another perfect illustration of the teaching. So how do we develop this wisdom in daily life? You ask, eager for practical guidance. Through both formal practice and moment-to-moment awareness, the monk answers. Meditation trains the mind to observe without immediately judging or reacting. Daily mindfulness applies this training to ordinary experiences. He picks up a small pebble from the path, turning it over in his palm. When something happens, especially something challenging, pause before reacting. In that pause, ask these questions. What conditions led to this situation? What would happen if I resist this reality? What response would create more positive conditions moving forward? The simplicity of this practice belies its power. Just the habit of pausing before reacting could transform many difficult situations in your life. Also helpful is regularly reflecting on past experiences where initial judgments proved limited, the monk suggests. Times when apparent misfortunes led to unexpected growth, or when seeming successes created unforeseen complications. This builds confidence in the wisdom of suspended judgment. You think about experiences in your own life that seemed devastating when they occurred, but later revealed hidden benefits, jobs lost that led to better opportunities, relationships ended that created space for greater growth, plans failed that redirected you toward more fulfilling paths. Everything truly does happen for a reason, the monk reiterates, unfolding according to innumerable causes and conditions, most beyond anyone's control or complete understanding. When we grasp this truth not just intellectually but experientially, we find freedom from the exhausting cycle of attachment and aversion that creates so much unnecessary suffering. As midday approaches, clouds begin gathering over the distant mountains, suggesting afternoon rain might be coming. Your teacher notices your glance toward the changing sky. Weather forms a perfect example of our teaching, he observes. Countless conditions, temperature, pressure, humidity, wind patterns, interact to create what we experience as a single event, rain. No one controls these conditions, yet they unfold according to natural laws, not random chance. The monastery bell rings, signaling the midday meal. Monks begin moving toward the dining hall, their various morning activities concluding in synchrony. Let's join the others, your teacher suggests. The afternoon meal provides another opportunity to practice mindfulness, to experience directly how everything, even the simple act of eating, happens for specific reasons, according to conditions. As you walk together along stone pathways, the monk continues exploring the practical application of these teachings. Understanding that everything happens for a reason doesn't mean we become passive, he emphasizes. We still act, but with greater wisdom. We work with conditions rather than against them, creating causes likely to lead to beneficial effects. You enter the dining hall where monks are taking their places in the same ordered, mindful manner you observed yesterday. The simple room contains no decorations or distractions, just low tables, cushions, and the necessities for the meal. Before we eat, the monk whispers as you take your place, observe the entire process that brings this food before us. The sunshine, rain, and soil that nourished the plants. The farmers who tended and harvested them. Those who transported, stored, and prepared these simple ingredients. The monastery economy that procures what we cannot grow ourselves. Following the midday meal, many monks retire for a brief rest during the hottest part of the day. Your teacher suggests using this time for walking meditation in a covered portico that offers shade while allowing air to circulate freely. Walking meditation provides another method for experiencing how everything happens according to conditions, he explains as you begin walking slowly side by side. Pay attention to the complex coordination required for this seemingly simple activity. You bring awareness to the process of walking, the shifting of weight, the lifting of the foot, the movement through space, the placing down. Countless muscles, nerves, and brain functions work together to create what we usually take for granted, as the single action of walking. Notice how each step depends on the previous step and creates conditions for the next, the monk instructs. This is how all of life unfolds, each moment arising from previous conditions and simultaneously creating conditions for what follows. The covered walkway circles the main meditation hall, offering glimpses of the courtyard garden through evenly spaced columns. Your walking tempo is much slower than normal, not artificially slow, but paced to allow full awareness of each movement. When walking normally, we rarely notice these complex processes, the monk observes. Similarly, in daily life, we seldom perceive the intricate web of causes and conditions creating each moment. We see results without recognizing their origins. Rain begins falling as predicted, creating a gentle percussion on the tiled roof above. The timing feels perfect, the protection of the covered walkway arranged precisely for this condition. Life functions more harmoniously when we align with rather than fight against conditions. The monk continues as you walk. Like being in this covered walkway during rain, we didn't stop the rain from happening, but wisdom anticipated the condition and created appropriate shelter. You complete several circuits in comfortable silence, the rhythm of walking becoming meditative in itself. The rain intensifies, then gradually eases, demonstrating again how all conditions arise, exist temporarily, then transform. As the rain clears, your teacher guides you to continue the day's exploration. Let's visit the monastery library, he suggests. There's something there that will help deepen our understanding. The library occupies a quiet corner of the monastery complex, a long room with high windows that allow natural light to illuminate ancient texts without the damaging effects of direct sunlight. Shelves line the walls, containing manuscripts, scrolls, and books in various languages, some appearing centuries old. A few monks sit at simple tables, reading or copying texts with careful attention. The atmosphere is one of focused scholarship, yet remains deeply peaceful. Your teacher selects a large, worn volume from a shelf and places it on an empty table where you both sit. The book opens to reveal beautiful calligraphy brushed by hand on handmade paper. Though you cannot read the language, the text is clearly arranged in verses, with occasional illustrations in faded ink. This contains the Buddha's teaching about dependent origination, the monk explains, carefully turning pages yellowed with age. It expresses in detail why everything happens for a reason, how all phenomena arise, exist, and cease in dependence upon conditions. He finds the passage he's seeking and translates, "When this exists, that comes to be. With the arising of this, that arises. When this does not exist, that does not come to be. With the cessation of this, that ceases." The simplicity of these lines belies their profound implications. This teaching describes reality at all scales, the monk explains. From the formation of galaxies to the arising of a single thought in your mind, nothing comes into being independently. Everything depends on conditions. You consider examples, how a plant depends on seed, soil, water, and sunlight, how a thought depends on prior experiences, current stimuli, and brain function. how a relationship depends on countless interactions and shared circumstances. This understanding transforms how we see ourselves. The monk continues. The separate, independent self we imagine is actually a process unfolding in dependence on countless conditions: physical, psychological, social, environmental. This perspective challenges your habitual sense of being a fixed, independent entity. If you exist as a process rather than a thing, continuously shaped by and shaping conditions, then the boundaries between self and world become much more permeable than usually imagined. When we recognize that we too happen for reasons according to conditions, the monk explains, we hold our identity more lightly. We stop taking experiences so personally. We understand our thoughts, emotions, and reactions as conditioned processes rather than defining truths. The library's peaceful atmosphere seems to support this contemplation. The quiet rustle of turning pages, the gentle movements of monks absorbed in study, the gradually shifting patterns of light as afternoon progresses. This understanding of dependent origination reveals why everything happens for a reason in the deepest sense. The monk continues. Not because of divine plan or predetermined fate, but because nothing can exist or occur independently of conditions. He carefully closes the ancient text, treating it with obvious reverence. The Buddha wasn't expressing philosophy for its own sake. He taught this to liberate us from suffering, to show us how attachment to what cannot last creates distress, and how understanding these processes creates freedom. Outside the library windows, sunlight has returned after the rain. The moisture-laden air creates a particular quality of luminescence, with raindrops on leaves catching light like countless tiny jewels. Let's return to the garden, your teacher suggests. Nature often demonstrates these teachings more directly than words. In Buddhism, we use the image of Indra's net to illustrate the interconnectedness of all things. The monk explains. Imagine a vast net extending infinitely in all directions. At each intersection of threads hangs a perfect jewel that reflects all other jewels in the net. Each jewel contains the reflection of all other jewels, and each of those reflections contains all other reflections, infinitely. This beautiful metaphor helps you visualize the teaching of interdependence, how everything exists in relationship to everything else, with no truly separate, independent phenomena. This understanding of interconnection is essential to grasping why everything happens for a reason. The monk continues. Your actions affect others. Their actions affect you. Environmental conditions affect social systems. Social systems affect environmental conditions. Nothing exists or happens in isolation. The path leads to a small pond that has overflowed slightly from the rain. Water lilies float on its surface, drops of rain still visible on their perfectly water-repellent leaves. A frog rests partially submerged at the edge, its presence creating tiny ripples that spread across the water. Consider this pond, the monk suggests. It exists because of specific geography creating a depression, rainfall providing water, plant and animal life establishing balance. If any condition changes significantly, drought, pollution, removal of key species, the entire pond ecosystem transforms. He kneels beside the water, inviting you to do the same. Look closely at your reflection, he instructs. You lean forward, seeing your face wavering on the water's surface, distorted by subtle movements and ripples. Just as this reflection exists dependent on water, light, and your position, the monk explains, what you think of as yourself exists dependent on countless conditions: body, memories, relationships, environment, culture, language. Change any significant condition, and your experience of self transforms. This perspective challenges your habitual sense of being a fixed, independent entity. If you exist as a process rather than a thing, continuously shaped by conditions, then perhaps identity is more fluid than usually assumed. When we truly understand dependent origination, the monk continues, we hold our sense of self more lightly. We stop taking experiences so personally. We recognize thoughts, emotions, and reactions as conditioned processes rather than defining truths. A dragonfly lands briefly on a reed extending from the pond, its iridescent wings catching sunlight before it darts away. Its brief visitation seems to illustrate the teaching perfectly, a momentary manifestation of countless conditions coming together, existing briefly, then transforming. This recognition transforms how we relate to suffering, the monk explains. Instead of asking, why is this happening to me, as if suffering were personal punishment, we understand this is happening because conditions support it. This shift creates space for wise response rather than reactive struggle. You consider how differently you might approach difficulties with this perspective. Less personalization, less resistance, more focus on understanding conditions, and creating skillful change where possible. The Buddha expressed this wisdom through 4 noble truths. Your teacher explains as you both rise from beside the pond. The first acknowledges suffering exists. The second identifies craving and attachment as its cause. The third asserts that suffering can end when its causes end. The fourth outlines the practical path to this liberation. These truths frame a logical approach to human experience, identifying a problem, suffering, its cause, attachment, the possibility of resolution, cessation, and a method, the Eightfold Path. Let's explore how understanding that everything happens for a reason relates to these truths, the monk suggests as you continue walking through the garden. The path ascends slightly, leading to a viewpoint overlooking both the monastery and the valley beyond. The afternoon sun casts long shadows across the landscape, emphasizing depth and contour. From this vantage point, patterns become visible that couldn't be discerned at ground level. The first noble truth simply acknowledges reality. The monk begins as you both settle on a stone bench. Suffering exists in human life. We experience physical pain, illness, aging, and death. We face psychological distress, fear, loneliness, disappointment, grief. These experiences are universal, part of being human. You reflect on your own encounters with suffering, from minor frustrations to profound losses. The acknowledgement feels honest, neither minimizing life's difficulties nor catastrophizing them. The Buddha didn't teach this to depress us, but to begin from honest recognition. The monk clarifies. Much like a doctor must accurately diagnose an illness before offering treatment, we must squarely face suffering's reality before finding its cessation. A cool breeze passes through the garden, causing leaves to flutter and flowers to sway. Even this simple movement reminds you of the constant change inherent in all conditions. The second noble truth identifies why suffering happens. Your teacher continues. It arises from tanha, usually translated as craving or thirst, our habitual tendency to grasp at pleasant experiences and push away unpleasant ones. This explanation resonates with your experience. How often has suffering intensified not because of what happened, but because of your desperate wish that reality be different than it is? When we don't understand that everything happens for a reason, according to conditions, the monk explains, we take events personally. We demand that reality conform to our preferences. We cling to what's pleasant as if it could last forever. We fight against what's unpleasant, as if rejection could make it disappear. The view from this height shows the monastery as part of a larger landscape, nested within mountains, forests, valleys, and sky. Similarly, your individual life exists within larger systems of cause and effect, stretching far beyond personal preferences. The third noble truth offers hope. The monk continues. When we understand that suffering arises from our relationship to experience, rather than from experience itself, we discover the possibility of liberation. If clinging creates suffering, release creates freedom. This teaching challenges conventional thinking. Most people seek happiness by trying to arrange external conditions perfectly, the right relationship, job, home, or achievements. But if suffering originates from how we relate to conditions rather than the conditions themselves, then freedom might be found through inner transformation rather than external control. The fourth noble truth provides the practical path. Your teacher explains. It outlines how to live from this understanding through right view, intention, speech, action, livelihood, effort, mindfulness, and concentration. These 8 aspects work together, transforming how we perceive and respond to life's events. The comprehensive nature of this path impresses you, addressing understanding, motivation, communication, behavior, work, energy, awareness, and mental cultivation. Not a simplistic solution, but a complete reorientation to existence. When we truly understand that everything happens for a reason according to causes and conditions, the monk continues, we naturally develop right view, the foundation of the entire path. We stop taking events personally, blaming others unfairly, or fighting against reality as it unfolds. From your elevated vantage point, you watch clouds move across the valley, their shadows flowing over the landscape like water. The perspective makes it easier to see how all elements interact: sunlight, air currents, moisture, temperature, creating the constantly changing conditions below. Right view naturally leads to right intention, your teacher explains. When we understand how suffering arises from grasping and aversion, we naturally intend to cultivate release, goodwill, and harmlessness. You consider how your own intentions might shift with deepening understanding, less driven by craving for specific outcomes, more oriented toward wisdom and compassion regardless of circumstances. These first two aspects of the path concern wisdom, the monk says. The next three, right speech, right action, and right livelihood, concern ethical conduct. When we understand that everything happens for a reason, according to conditions, we recognize how our words, actions, and work create ripples, affecting ourselves and others. Birds soar in the valley below, riding invisible air currents with effortless grace. They neither fight against these conditions nor try to control them. They simply understand their nature and work with them skillfully. The final three aspects, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration, concern mental development. Your teacher continues. They train the mind to see clearly, remain present, and respond wisely rather than react habitually. The sun begins its gradual descent toward the western mountains, the quality of light shifting subtly toward golden afternoon tones. This too reminds you of impermanence, how even the seemingly reliable sun appears to move through the sky, creating constantly changing conditions of light and shadow. This entire path emerges naturally from deeply understanding that everything happens for a reason, the monk summarizes. When we recognize that all phenomena arise, exist, and cease according to conditions, we stop fighting reality and start working skillfully within it. As you sit together absorbing these teachings, a temple bell rings in the distance, its clear tones signaling a transition in the monastery's daily schedule. Your teacher suggests returning to the main buildings for the afternoon meditation session. The teachings we've discussed are valuable intellectually, he explains as you descend the path, but their real power comes through direct experience in meditation practice. Back at the meditation hall, monks gather for the afternoon session. The atmosphere feels different from morning practice, perhaps because of the day's accumulated awareness or the particular quality of afternoon light filtering through paper windows. You take your place on a cushion, arranging your posture as instructed earlier, back straight but not rigid, hands resting in your lap, gaze softly lowered. The collective presence of practitioners creates a palpable field of concentrated awareness that seems to support your own practice. This afternoon, your teacher explains once all are settled, we'll explore a meditation that directly investigates dependent origination, how phenomena arise from conditions, exist temporarily, then cease as conditions change. He guides the initial settling of attention through breath awareness, allowing the mind to become more stable and clear. After several minutes of this foundational practice, he introduces the investigation. As you sit, notice how sensations arise in your body, he instructs. When you become aware of a particular sensation, perhaps pressure where you contact the cushion, or warmth in your hands, investigate its nature. Does it remain constant or change? What conditions support its appearance? What happens as those conditions shift? You follow these instructions, bringing attention to bodily sensations with genuine curiosity. You notice a slight discomfort in your lower back that wasn't apparent earlier. As you observe without immediate reaction, you discover it's not a static experience, but a complex, changing process. Moments of sharpness, followed by dullness, intensifying then, fading, moving slightly from place to place. Now expand your awareness to include emotions. The monk continues after several minutes. Notice what feelings are present, perhaps peace, restlessness, contentment, impatience. Observe how each emotion arises from specific conditions and changes as conditions change. You discover a subtle anxiety present in your awareness, perhaps concern about correctly practicing these new instructions. As you observe this feeling with curiosity rather than judgment, you notice how it's supported by particular thoughts about doing it right. When attention shifts to simple observation rather than evaluation, the anxiety gradually transforms. Next, notice thoughts themselves, your teacher guides. Watch how they appear in consciousness, exist briefly, then dissolve to make space for new thoughts. Can you observe the conditions that give rise to particular thought patterns? This observation reveals how your thoughts aren't random but arise from specific conditions, external stimuli, bodily sensations, emotional states, previous thoughts, habitual patterns. No thought simply appears from nowhere. Each emerges from a complex web of conditions. Finally, expand awareness to notice consciousness itself, the monk suggests, his voice increasingly subtle as the meditation deepens. This awareness that knows sensations, emotions, and thoughts, observe how it too arises according to conditions. When tired, consciousness takes on certain qualities. When concentrated, it manifests differently. This level of observation feels more challenging yet somehow more spacious. You begin to recognize how even your awareness itself isn't a fixed entity, but a dynamic process responding to changing conditions, clearer or duller, focused or scattered, expanded or contracted, depending on circumstances. In this investigation, the teacher explains quietly, we directly experience how everything happens for a reason according to conditions. Nothing in our experience exists independently or remains unchanged. Everything flows in the continuous dance of arising and passing away. The meditation continues in silence, each practitioner exploring this territory of direct observation. The collective energy of the hall supports sustained attention, making it easier to maintain awareness without distraction. After what might be 20 minutes, or might be longer, time seems fluid in deep meditation. A small bell rings 3 times, signaling the session's conclusion. The monk offers final guidance as everyone gradually returns to ordinary awareness. Let this understanding of dependent origination infuse your entire experience, he suggests. When pleasant experiences arise, remember they exist because conditions support them and will change when conditions change. When difficult experiences arise, recognize they too depend on specific conditions and aren't permanent realities. You open your eyes slowly, the meditation hall coming back into focus. Afternoon light casts long rectangles through paper windows onto the wooden floor. Other monks shift slightly, some stretching subtly after the period of stillness. Carry this awareness into your evening activities, the monk concludes. Notice how everything you experience, from the taste of food to interactions with others, to your own changing mental states, happens for specific reasons according to conditions. As monks disperse to various evening activities, your teacher invites you to join him for a walk outside the monastery walls. The surrounding forest offers another perspective on our teachings, he explains, as you pass through the main gate. The path descends gently through pine forest, the ground soft with needles that cushion each step. The air smells of resin and earth, rich and vitally alive. Birdsong provides an intermittent soundtrack to your walk, along with the subtle sounds of wind in branches and your own footsteps. Natural environments often make these teachings more accessible, the monk observes. Interconnection and impermanence are plainly visible here for anyone with eyes to see. You notice how different the forest feels from the carefully tended monastery gardens. Here, life expresses itself with less apparent order yet perfect ecological intelligence, dead trees becoming nurse logs for new growth, fungi decomposing fallen branches, insects and birds maintaining balance through their feeding patterns. In Buddhism, we don't see nature as separate from ourselves, your teacher explains as you walk. The same principles that govern these forest processes govern human experience. We too are natural systems responding to conditions. The path crosses a small stream via stepping stones. Recent rain has increased its flow, making the crossing require more careful attention. You focus on each stone as you progress, feeling how your movement adapts to these specific conditions. Every action we take resembles crossing this stream, the monk observes when you reach the other side. We respond to conditions as they are, not as we might wish them to be. The stones are placed as they are, the water flows as it does. Wisdom lies in working skillfully with these realities, rather than demanding they conform to our preferences. Further along, you encounter a fallen tree blocking the path. Rather than being cleared away, the tree has been incorporated into the trail. Steps cut into its trunk create a natural staircase over the obstacle. This demonstrates another aspect of wisdom, your teacher notes as you climb over the tree trunk. When conditions present obstacles, we can respond in different ways. We might fight against reality, demanding the obstacle be removed. We might give up, turning back from our path. Or we might work creatively with conditions as they are, finding a way forward that acknowledges reality while serving our purpose. The forest grows denser as you continue, the canopy filtering afternoon sunlight into dappled patterns on the forest floor. These shifting light patterns create an almost hypnotic effect as you walk, emphasizing the constant change inherent in all experience. When we truly understand that everything happens for a reason according to conditions, the monk continues, we stop exhausting ourselves fighting against reality. Instead, like these trees growing toward available light, we respond intelligently to conditions as they are. You notice how trees growing in shade have developed different shapes than those in sunnier locations, stretching taller with fewer lower branches to maximize light exposure. Each has adapted perfectly to its specific conditions. Human suffering often comes from our resistance to this natural process, your teacher observes. We demand conditions be different than they are. We refuse to adapt, insisting reality should conform to our fixed ideas. We fight against change rather than flowing with it. The path emerges from dense forest into a small clearing where a flat rock formation creates a natural resting place. Your teacher suggests pausing here before returning to the monastery. The late afternoon sun warms the stone as you sit, creating a pleasant contrast to the cool forest air. Let me share a teaching story that illustrates why everything happens for a reason, the monk says, as you settle comfortably on the sun-warmed rock. It concerns how our limited perspective often prevents us from recognizing the deeper purpose within experiences, especially difficult ones. You prepare to listen, sensing that stories sometimes convey wisdom more effectively than abstract explanations. There once was a young disciple studying with a renowned meditation master. The monk begins. The disciple was sincere but often impatient, wanting to advance quickly toward enlightenment without fully developing the necessary foundations. One day, the master asked the disciple to prepare tea. The young man did so hurriedly, bringing a steaming pot and cups to where the master sat. As he began pouring, the master suddenly struck the disciple's hand, causing him to spill hot tea everywhere. The disciple was shocked and upset. "Master, why did you do that?" he demanded. "Now the tea is wasted, and I nearly burned myself." The master pointed calmly to the cup he had prevented the disciple from filling. Inside was a small scorpion that had fallen in while the cup sat unused. Had the disciple poured the tea, the scorpion would certainly have stung him when he lifted the cup to drink. Sometimes what appears as harm is actually protection, the master explained. Your limited perspective saw only an aggressive act. My wider perspective saw what would happen if I didn't intervene. The monk pauses, letting the story settle into your understanding. This simple tale holds multiple lessons, he continues. First, it demonstrates how limited perspective prevents us from recognizing the true nature of events. What appears harmful from one viewpoint may serve a beneficial purpose from a wider perspective. You think about experiences in your own life initially perceived as setbacks that later revealed unexpected benefits, plans that fell through making way for better opportunities, relationships that ended, creating space for growth, failures that taught essential lessons leading to later success. Second, the story reminds us that we rarely see the full web of causes and conditions affecting any situation, your teacher explains. The disciple couldn't see the scorpion. He lacked information necessary for accurate understanding. Similarly, we often judge situations without seeing their full context. Birds call to each other as evening approaches, preparing to roost for the night. Their communication, incomprehensible to human ears, nonetheless serves perfectly within their own system of meaning, another reminder of how limited any single perspective must be. Finally, the story suggests that apparent setbacks often protect us from harm we cannot perceive, the monk concludes. The paths not taken, the opportunities missed, the relationships ended. These disappointments may actually be sheltering us from greater difficulties or clearing the way for more appropriate circumstances. This perspective offers a profound reframing of life's challenges, not as random misfortunes to be endured, but as meaningful redirections, guiding you toward what truly serves your development. When we understand that everything happens for a reason, your teacher emphasizes, we hold our judgments more lightly. We remain open to the possibility that what seems negative from our limited perspective may serve purposes we cannot yet recognize. The sun dips lower toward mountain peaks, signaling time to return to the monastery before darkness falls. You rise from the warm rock, feeling both physically refreshed by the forest walk and mentally stimulated by these teachings. As we walk back, the monk suggests, practice maintaining awareness of how each step happens for specific reasons, your intention to return, the path's condition, your body's capabilities, the changing light, influencing your pace. Nothing occurs randomly, everything manifests through the meeting of particular conditions. This mindful walking practice helps integrate the intellectual understanding you've been developing with direct physical experience. Each step involves countless factors coming together: muscle contractions, neurological signals, balance adjustments, visual processing, yet occurs as a seemingly simple, unified action. This same principle applies to all aspects of experience. Your teacher reminds you as you approach the monastery gates. From mundane activities like walking to profound spiritual insights, everything happens for specific reasons according to conditions. Evening settles over the monastery as you return. Lanterns have been lit along pathways, creating pools of warm light in the gathering darkness. Monks move quietly between buildings, completing final daily tasks before the evening meal and meditation. After dinner, your teacher says, "I want to address how understanding that everything happens for a reason transforms our approach to life's greatest challenges, including those that seem meaningless or fundamentally unfair." The evening meal follows the same mindful pattern as previous ones, a simple grace, acknowledging the many contributions that bring food to the table, eating conducted with full awareness, cleaning completed with the same attention as all other activities. Following the meal, while most monks retire to the main hall for evening meditation, your teacher leads you to a small side garden illuminated by stone lanterns. The night air carries a slight chill, and stars begin appearing in the clear mountain sky. The atmosphere feels perfectly aligned for deeper teachings. Throughout human history, the monk begins as you both settle on a stone bench. People have struggled with experiences that seem meaningless or unjust, natural disasters that destroy indiscriminately, children born into suffering, good people facing terrible misfortune, while harmful ones prosper. You think about situations in your own life and in the wider world that have raised similar questions, apparent injustices that challenge any sense of meaningful order. Many religious traditions answer these questions through concepts of divine will or predetermined fate. Your teacher continues. Buddhism offers a different perspective through the understanding that everything happens for a reason according to causes and conditions, many extending far beyond what any individual can perceive. A nightbird calls from somewhere in the darkness, its voice clear and melancholy against the background of crickets and distant water. When facing profound suffering or injustice, the monk explains, Buddhist wisdom doesn't ask us to accept simplistic explanations like everything happens for the best or it's all part of a plan. Rather, it invites us to recognize the vast complexity of conditions creating each situation. This perspective neither minimizes suffering nor requires belief in cosmic justice. It simply acknowledges reality's immense complexity, and our limited ability to comprehend it fully. Natural disasters happen because of geological, meteorological, and environmental conditions. Your teacher illustrates. Children experience suffering because of social, economic, political, and historical conditions. Good people face misfortune, and harmful ones prosper because the web of karma extends across lifetimes and involves collective as well as individual actions. Stars continue appearing overhead as darkness deepens, their ancient light reaching you after traveling years or centuries through space, a perfect metaphor for how causes create effects across vast distances of both space and time. Understanding that everything happens for a reason according to conditions doesn't explain away suffering or make it disappear, the monk emphasizes. But it helps us respond more skillfully by focusing attention on conditions we can affect, rather than wasting energy fighting against what cannot be changed. You consider how differently you might approach challenges with this perspective, less entangled in questions of why me, or demands for cosmic fairness, more engaged with understanding and addressing conditions within your influence. This understanding also cultivates compassion. Your teacher continues. When we recognize that all beings are responding to conditions, many beyond their conscious control, we hold less blame and judgment. The person acting harmfully does so because of specific causes and conditions, shaping their understanding and choices. This doesn't mean excusing harmful behavior, but recognizing its conditioned nature, how factors like childhood experiences, cultural programming, neurological patterns, and environmental pressures shape actions that appear as free choices. Most importantly, the monk emphasizes, this understanding empowers us to create different conditions moving forward. While we cannot change what has already occurred, we can establish causes likely to produce more beneficial effects for ourselves and others. The stone lanterns cast gentle light that doesn't extend far into the surrounding darkness, like human understanding illuminating a small circle of the vast unknown. Yet this limited light provides enough to navigate the immediate environment safely. When facing life's greatest challenges, your teacher concludes, remember that understanding why everything happens for a reason isn't about passive acceptance but wise discernment. It helps us distinguish what can be changed from what must be accepted, then respond with both compassion for what is and commitment to creating more beneficial conditions for what will be. As evening deepens around the monastery, the main bell rings, signaling the final meditation session of the day. Monks gather in the hall, where candles create islands of soft light in the darkness. The atmosphere feels both peaceful and charged with collective intention. For tonight's practice, your teacher explains as you take your place on a cushion, we'll explore how understanding that everything happens for a reason transforms our relationship with difficult emotions. The hall settles into silence as practitioners arrange themselves in meditation posture. Only the occasional sounds of shifting bodies and distant night creatures interrupt the profound quiet. Begin by settling awareness in the present moment. The monk instructs, his voice gentler than during daytime teachings. Notice your breath, your body sensations, the points of contact with the floor and cushion. Allow yourself to be fully here now. You follow these instructions, feeling how different evening meditation feels from morning or afternoon sessions. The body carries the day's accumulated experiences. The mind holds impressions and understandings from hours of practice and teaching. Now, bring to mind a moderately difficult situation from your life. Your teacher continues after several minutes of settling. Nothing overwhelming, but something that creates noticeable emotional reactivity, perhaps a misunderstanding with someone, a minor setback, or an ongoing challenge. You recall a recent work situation involving criticism that felt unfair at the time. Even remembering it now creates a subtle tightening in your chest and shoulders. Notice what emotions arise as you recall this situation. The monk guides. Don't suppress or analyze them. Simply observe with kind awareness. What feelings are present? Where do you experience them in your body? You discover a complex mixture: defensiveness, embarrassment, residual anger, manifesting as tension in your shoulders, a slight flush in your face, a knot in your stomach. These physical manifestations make the emotions tangibly real rather than abstract concepts. Now investigate the conditions supporting these emotions. Your teacher instructs. What thoughts accompany these feelings? What beliefs underlie your reaction? What past experiences might influence your present response? This investigation reveals how your emotional reaction depends on specific conditions: thoughts about being misunderstood, beliefs about fairness, previous experiences where criticism led to negative consequences. The emotion isn't a solid thing, but a process arising from these supporting conditions. Notice how understanding the conditioned nature of emotions creates space around them, the monk suggests. They're no longer solid, permanent realities, but temporary phenomena arising when certain conditions come together. This shift in perspective creates a subtle but significant change in your experience. The emotions themselves don't disappear, but they become less overwhelming, less defining, more like weather passing through the sky of awareness than absolute truths about reality. When we truly understand that everything happens for a reason according to conditions, your teacher continues, his voice barely above a whisper in the quiet hall, we hold our emotions more lightly. We recognize that anger, fear, jealousy, and grief arise not because we're flawed or because reality is wrong, but because specific conditions support these states. Candles flicker as a slight breeze finds its way into the hall, creating dancing shadows on walls and ceiling. Like emotions, these shadows are real experiences but not solid realities, dependent on specific conditions of flame, air movement, and surfaces for their momentary existence. This understanding doesn't mean suppressing emotions or becoming coldly analytical about them, the monk clarifies. Rather, it allows us to experience feelings fully while recognizing their conditioned, impermanent nature. We neither repress nor indulge, we acknowledge with wisdom. You continue observing the emotional landscape arising from your recalled situation, noticing how awareness itself gradually changes the experience. The physical sensations begin shifting, tension softening, heat dissipating, constriction opening, not because you force change, but because sustained, non-reactive awareness itself creates new conditions. As our meditation concludes, your teacher says after several more minutes of silent practice, Recognize that this same approach can be applied to all experiences, pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. Everything we encounter, external or internal, happens for reasons according to conditions and changes as conditions change. 3 strikes of a small bell signal the session's end. The hall remains quiet as practitioners gradually shift from formal meditation to ordinary awareness. There's a palpable sense of collective settledness, as if the shared practice has harmonized the group's energy, despite each person following their own inner journey. Carry this understanding into your sleep tonight, the monk suggests as monks begin quietly leaving the hall. Notice how even dreams happen for reasons according to conditions and offer teaching if approached with awareness. The evening rain continues gently as your teacher leads you toward the monastery's main hall for the final meditation session of your stay. Lanterns illuminate the pathways, their light reflected in puddles and wet surfaces, creating a dreamlike atmosphere of doubled illumination. Tonight's practice will help integrate all we've explored about why everything happens for a reason, the monk explains, as you walk together. We'll investigate how to carry this understanding beyond monastery walls into daily existence. Other monks gather for evening meditation, their movements unhurried yet purposeful. Despite the rain, there's no sense of inconvenience or complaint, just appropriate adjustments to current conditions. Watching this community navigate changing circumstances with such natural grace provides a living demonstration of the teachings you've been receiving. Inside the meditation hall, candles create islands of warm light in the darkness. The atmosphere feels both peaceful and charged with collective intention. You take your place on a cushion, arranging your posture with growing familiarity, back straight but not rigid, hands resting in your lap, gaze softly lowered. Begin by settling awareness in the present moment. Your teacher instructs once all are seated. Notice your breath, your body sensations, the points of contact with the floor and cushion. Allow yourself to be fully here now. You follow these instructions, noticing how different this feels from your initial meditation attempts. There's less struggle to concentrate, more natural presence with experience as it unfolds. Even wandering thoughts become opportunities for practice, rather than obstacles to it. As your awareness stabilizes, the monk continues after several minutes. Reflect on the central teaching we've explored. Everything happens for a reason, according to causes and conditions. Nothing arises independently, nothing exists separately, nothing occurs randomly. This understanding has gradually settled from intellectual concept to experiential reality through your time at the monastery. You've observed its truth in nature, in human interactions, in your own body and mind, everything manifesting through specific conditions coming together. Now, contemplate how you might integrate this understanding into your daily life beyond the monastery, your teacher suggests. Not as philosophy or belief, but as lived wisdom illuminating each experience. This brings your attention to practical application. How might this teaching transform your relationship with work challenges, difficult relationships, personal habits, unexpected circumstances, all the complex conditions comprising ordinary existence? First, consider how understanding dependent origination affects how you perceive problems. The monk guides. When difficulties arise, rather than seeing them as random obstacles or personal punishments, you might investigate what conditions created them and what conditions might transform them. You imagine applying this approach to challenges awaiting your return, seeing them not as solid, independent entities, but as processes arising from specific conditions, many of which might be addressable through wise action. Next, contemplate how this understanding transforms your relationship with other people. Your teacher continues. When someone acts in ways that create difficulty, rather than judging them based on isolated behavior, you might recognize their actions as arising from their own complex conditioning, just as yours arise from yours. This perspective doesn't excuse harmful behavior, but creates space for seeing people more completely, understanding rather than merely reacting to their actions. Such understanding naturally cultivates compassion rather than judgment. Also consider how recognizing that everything happens for a reason affects your relationship with your own thoughts and emotions, the monk suggests. When difficult states arise, rather than identifying with them as me or mine, you might observe them as conditioned processes, arising when specific factors come together. This approach offers liberation from being controlled by mental and emotional states, not by suppressing them, but by understanding their conditioned nature and therefore holding them more lightly. Finally, contemplate how this understanding transforms your approach to creating positive change. Your teacher instructs. Rather than forcing outcomes through rigid will or abandoning responsibility through passivity, you might work skillfully with conditions as they are, while introducing beneficial new conditions. This balanced middle way avoids both controlling struggle and resigned acceptance, offering instead intelligent cooperation with reality's fluid processes. As the meditation continues in silence, you explore these applications, imagining how different life might be when viewed through this lens of understanding. Not that external circumstances would magically transform, but your relationship with those circumstances might change profoundly. After what might be 20 minutes, or might be longer, time seems fluid in deep meditation. A small bell rings 3 times, signaling the session's conclusion. Your teacher offers final guidance as the hall gradually returns to ordinary activity. As you prepare to leave tomorrow, he says, remember that this understanding is always available to you, regardless of external circumstances. Everything happening for a reason according to conditions isn't something you believe or don't believe. It's simply how reality functions, whether recognized or not. This reminder feels significant. The teaching isn't an optional philosophy, but a description of how existence actually operates. Your recognition or non-recognition doesn't change reality, but it profoundly affects how you experience and navigate that reality. Carry this wisdom with you like an internal compass, the monk suggests as the meditation hall slowly empties. Let it guide your responses to whatever conditions you encounter. Following evening meditation, most monks retire to their quarters, but your teacher invites you for a final conversation beneath the monastery's covered walkway. The rain has stopped, leaving the night air fresh and clear. Stars begin appearing between scattered clouds, their ancient light reaching you after traveling vast distances through space. Before you rest tonight, the monk says, as you settle on a simple wooden bench, I want to address some common misunderstandings about what it means that everything happens for a reason. This will help you maintain clear understanding as you return to daily life. You welcome this clarification, aware that subtle misinterpretations might significantly alter how you apply these teachings. First, your teacher begins, understanding that everything happens for a reason, according to conditions, doesn't mean adopting fatalism or resignation. Recognizing how conditions create current reality empowers us to establish different conditions, creating different future realities. This corrects the potential misunderstanding that accepting reality's conditioned nature might lead to passive acceptance of harmful or unbeneficial circumstances. Second, the monk continues, this understanding doesn't suggest that suffering happens for the best or serves some predetermined plan. It simply recognizes that all phenomena arise from specific causes and conditions rather than random chance or divine intervention. This clarification addresses the common confusion between Buddhist dependent origination and certain religious notions of fate or divine purpose. Third, your teacher emphasizes recognizing that others' actions arise from their conditioning doesn't mean excusing harmful behavior or abandoning appropriate boundaries. Understanding causes doesn't preclude wise response, including protecting yourself and others from harm. This addresses the misconception that compassion based on understanding others' conditioning might lead to unhealthy acceptance of mistreatment. Fourth, the monk continues, understanding karma, how actions create consequences, doesn't mean blaming victims for their suffering. Most conditions creating any situation extend far beyond individual choice, involving collective, historical, environmental, and countless other factors beyond personal control. This corrects a particularly harmful misinterpretation that sometimes leads people to dismiss others' suffering as deserved or self-created. Finally, your teacher concludes, this teaching doesn't ask you to stop having preferences or desires for positive change. It simply suggests holding these preferences with wisdom rather than rigid demand, recognizing the difference between wanting reality to be different and refusing to accept it as it currently is. Night air feels increasingly cool against your skin, another simple reminder of how all experience depends on specific conditions, in this case temperature, moisture, and physical sensation. As you integrate these teachings, the monk advises, be patient with yourself. Understanding that everything happens for a reason according to conditions is simple in concept, but profound in application. It takes time and practice for this wisdom to permeate all aspects of experience. Stars continue appearing as clouds disperse, revealing more of the vast cosmic expanse above the monastery. The scale of space visible on this clear mountain night offers another perspective on dependent origination, how even celestial bodies and cosmic processes arise, exist, and cease according to specific conditions. Remember that the purpose of understanding why everything happens for a reason isn't to reach perfect comprehension of all conditions. Your teacher emphasizes that would be impossible given reality's immense complexity. The purpose is practical, to reduce suffering and increase wisdom in how you relate to life as it unfolds. This reminder feels liberating. You don't need to understand every causal factor in every situation. You simply need enough clarity to respond more skillfully and suffer less unnecessarily. Tomorrow as you leave, the monk says, carry 3 questions that can help maintain this understanding in daily life. What conditions led to this situation? What would happen if I resist this reality? What response would create more positive conditions moving forward? These practical questions distill the teaching's essence into an applicable form, a compass for navigating complex situations with greater wisdom. Now rest well, your teacher concludes, with a gentle bow. Tomorrow brings the opportunity to practice these teachings in new conditions. Remember that everything, even sleep, even dreams, happens according to specific causes and conditions, and offers wisdom if approached with awareness. As you return to your simple quarters for your final night at the monastery, the cumulative effect of these teachings continues working within you. The room feels different somehow, not physically changed, but perceived differently through your evolving understanding. The single candle, the sleeping mat, the small table, the cup of tea someone has thoughtfully prepared, each exists through countless conditions coming together. Their apparent solidity dissolves somewhat when perceived as processes rather than fixed objects. You prepare for sleep, reflecting on the extraordinary amount of wisdom shared during your brief stay. The teachings on dependent origination, how everything happens for specific reasons according to conditions, feel simultaneously vast in implications and immediately practical in application. Sleep approaches gradually, your awareness moving between alert contemplation and dreamy pre-sleep states. In this liminal space, the monastery's teachings continue processing themselves, integrating at levels beyond conscious thought. Your final coherent reflection before drifting into sleep centers on gratitude for the monks who've preserved these teachings across centuries, for your teacher's skillful guidance, for the fortunate conditions that brought you to this place of learning. This gratitude itself arises from specific conditions, exposure to wisdom, recognition of its value, the human capacity for appreciation. Sleep comes easily, deeper, and more peaceful than usual. For the first time in years, you're not fighting against reality, but learning to flow with it. Morning arrives with the first light of dawn and the gentle sound of monastery bells. You wake feeling simultaneously rested and somehow transformed, not dramatically different, but subtly shifted in perspective. Today you'll return to ordinary life beyond monastery walls, carrying these teachings into different conditions. You begin with 3 conscious breaths, establishing awareness before rising. Simple morning activities, washing, dressing, arranging your few belongings, become opportunities to practice presence rather than automatic functions to complete without attention. Outside your quarters, the monastery moves through its morning rhythm. Everything appears fresh after yesterday's rain, colors more vibrant, air more clear, surfaces glistening with remaining moisture. Yet you recognize these too as impermanent conditions that will change as sunlight intensifies and water evaporates. Your teacher finds you after breakfast, suggesting a final walk before your departure. "Let's visit the viewpoint overlooking the valley," he proposes. It offers a fitting perspective for our concluding conversation. The path ascending to the viewpoint feels familiar now, your body remembering its contours from previous climbs. Yet subtle changes have occurred since your last visit. New puddles from yesterday's rain, different birds calling from surrounding trees, altered quality of morning light. Nothing remains exactly the same, even in this seemingly timeless place. Reaching the viewpoint, you discover a spectacular morning vista. Valley mist is beginning to burn off as sunlight strengthens, revealing the landscape below in stages rather than all at once. Mountains beyond remain partially obscured by lingering clouds, creating a scene of depth and mystery. This changing view perfectly illustrates our teaching. Your teacher observes as you both settle on the stone bench. What you see depends entirely on specific conditions, time of day, recent weather, your physical position, atmospheric clarity. Change any condition, and your perception transforms accordingly. The valley continues revealing itself as mist disperses. Villages, fields, rivers, and forests gradually emerge from obscurity into visibility. This natural unfolding seems to mirror your own experience during these days of learning, wisdom gradually clarifying what was previously obscured. As you return to your daily life, the monk continues, you'll face conditions very different from what you've experienced here. Some may support continued practice, others may challenge it. This is natural and to be expected. This acknowledgement feels important, realistic recognition that the supportive monastery environment differs significantly from ordinary circumstances, with their complex demands and distractions. Remember that challenging conditions don't prevent practice, but actually constitute its most important field, your teacher emphasizes. Anyone can maintain awareness in a quiet monastery. The true test comes amid difficulty, distraction, and competing demands. This perspective transforms potential obstacles into opportunities, seeing difficult conditions not as barriers to practice, but as its essential material. When you feel overwhelmed by life's complexity, the monk advises, return to simple awareness of breathing. This immediate experience is always available, regardless of external circumstances. From this foundation, you can expand to include wider awareness of how everything happens for a reason according to conditions. The practical simplicity of this guidance feels like a lifeline. When confused by complexity, return to immediacy. When lost in abstractions, ground in direct experience. Also, remember that you don't need to perfectly maintain this understanding at all times, your teacher adds with a gentle smile. That expectation itself creates suffering through unrealistic demands. When you forget and become caught in reactivity, as all practitioners sometimes do, simply recognize what's happening and return to awareness without self-judgment. This permission for imperfect practice feels liberating, removing the additional burden of expecting flawless implementation. The path includes moments of forgetfulness, naturally followed by remembering. Finally, the monk says, consider finding others who share interest in these teachings. Community support makes integration much easier than practicing in isolation. Even connecting with fellow practitioners occasionally can significantly sustain your understanding during challenging periods. Birds soar in the valley below, riding morning thermals with effortless grace. They neither fight against these invisible air currents, nor try to control them. They simply understand their nature and work with them skillfully. Their flight embodies the very wisdom you've been exploring, fluid cooperation with conditions rather than struggle against them. Before we return to prepare for your departure, your teacher says, "Do you have any final questions about these teachings?" You consider carefully, wanting to use this opportunity wisely. How will I know if I'm truly understanding that everything happens for a reason versus just intellectually grasping the concept? The monk nods appreciatively. Excellent question. There are several signs of deepening understanding. You'll notice less reactivity to difficult circumstances, fewer automatic patterns of blame, resentment, or prolonged distress. You'll experience greater equanimity amid changing conditions, less desperate grasping at pleasant experiences, or frantic avoidance of unpleasant ones. You'll find increasing creativity in responding to challenges, seeing more options beyond fight, flight, or freeze. Most importantly, you'll suffer less unnecessarily, still experiencing life's natural pains, but without the additional layers of resistance, personalization, and elaborate meaning-making that intensify distress. His answer provides practical benchmarks for assessing your progress without creating additional expectations to struggle toward. The signs emerge naturally from deepening understanding rather than requiring forced effort. One more question, you venture. What if I find myself in circumstances where applying these teachings feels impossible? When conditions seem overwhelmingly difficult? Another excellent question, your teacher responds. In particularly challenging times, simplify your practice. Don't expect complete equanimity or perfect understanding. Instead, maintain minimal awareness, just noticing without judgment that conditions are currently difficult and your capacity is temporarily limited. This simple recognition itself represents the teaching in action, seeing clearly how everything, including your current inability to practice more extensively, happens for reasons according to conditions. This guidance feels particularly valuable, offering a foundation that remains accessible even during life's most challenging periods, rather than creating ideals attainable only under optimal circumstances. It's time to descend, the monk says, rising from the bench. Your journey back begins soon. As you follow the path downward, the monastery comes into view below, its buildings, gardens, and pathways forming an integrated whole within the mountain landscape. From this perspective, you can see how perfectly the community has adapted to natural conditions, using the mountain's contours rather than fighting against them, capturing water's natural flow rather than forcing artificial systems, orienting structures to maximize natural light and minimize exposure to harsh elements. The monastery itself embodies our teaching, your teacher observes, noting your gaze. Over centuries, practitioners have created this place by working with, rather than against conditions. The result is harmony rather than perpetual struggle. Upon returning, you gather your few belongings and prepare for departure. Other monks appear to offer simple farewells, some with gentle nods, others with quiet words of encouragement. Though your stay has been brief, you feel a genuine connection with this community, united by shared practice rather than conventional social ties. Your teacher accompanies you to the monastery gate, where the path begins its descent toward the valley. The morning has fully blossomed now, sunlight illuminating the landscape, birds actively singing, gentle breezes carrying the scent of pine and distant flowering plants. As you return to your world, the monk says at the threshold, remember that these teachings aren't separate from ordinary life, but reveal its true nature. Everything you encounter, from mundane tasks to profound challenges, happens for specific reasons, according to conditions, and offers opportunities for deepening wisdom. He places something in your hand, a simple bracelet made of wooden beads, similar to those many monks wear around their wrists. This can serve as a reminder when needed. Whenever you notice it, take one conscious breath and recall that everything in that moment, including your awareness itself, happens for reasons according to conditions. The simple gift feels perfectly appropriate, not elaborate or precious in conventional terms, but meaningful as a practical aid for continued practice. Thank you for these teachings, you say, feeling both gratitude and a certain sadness at departure. They've changed how I see everything. The teachings were already present in reality. The monk responds with a gentle smile. We've simply pointed to what was always there but perhaps not recognized. The true teacher is your own direct experience when approached with awareness. With a final bow, he releases you to continue your journey. As you begin descending the mountain path, you glance back once to see him still standing at the gate, a serene presence amid the monastery's timeless activity. The path down the mountain offers its own opportunities for practice. Each step requires attention to current conditions, steepness, loose stones, muddy sections from yesterday's rain. Your body naturally adjusts its movement according to these changing circumstances, demonstrating at the physical level exactly what you've been learning at the conceptual level. You notice how this descent differs from your ascent days earlier. Then, your mind was filled with expectations, questions, perhaps anxiety about what you would find. Now, though still anticipating return to ordinary life, your awareness remains more grounded in present experience, the sensation of each step, the changing perspective as you descend, the sounds and scents of the mountain environment. About halfway down, you pause to rest beside a small stream. Water flows with perfect responsiveness to conditions, moving faster where the slope steepens, forming pools where depressions exist, creating ripples when encountering rocks, remaining smooth where the stream is even. No resistance, no complaint, no struggle against circumstances, just natural adaptation to what is. Everything happens for a reason, according to conditions. You remind yourself, watching water droplets catch sunlight as they splash over stones. This simple fact, recognized or not, governs all existence, from cosmic processes to subatomic interactions, from social systems to individual thoughts arising in consciousness. Continuing downward, you begin noticing signs of human habitation, terraced fields in the distance, occasional glimpses of valley roads, the sound of a vehicle somewhere below. The contrast between monastery simplicity and ordinary complexity grows more apparent with each step towards civilization. Yet, rather than creating anxiety, this transition feels more like an opportunity to apply what you've learned in different circumstances. The monastery provided optimal conditions for recognizing these teachings, but their true value emerges in navigating everyday complexities with greater wisdom and less unnecessary suffering. By midday, you reach the small village where your journey began and will now conclude with transportation back to your regular life. The settlement appears simultaneously familiar and somehow different, physically unchanged yet perceived through your evolved understanding. While waiting for your transportation, you sit at a small tea shop overlooking the village square. Ordinary life unfolds before you, merchants selling goods, children playing, elders conversing on benches, workers delivering supplies. Every action, every interaction happens for specific reasons according to conditions, though most participants remain unaware of this underlying reality. You don't view this lack of awareness with judgment, but with compassion, recognizing that your own understanding remains partial and continues developing through practice. The Buddha's teachings describe reality whether acknowledged or not, just as gravity operates regardless of our understanding of physics. Sipping tea, you notice its complex flavor profile: bitter, sweet, astringent, earthy notes combining into a single experience, dependent on countless conditions from soil composition to water temperature. Even this simple pleasure demonstrates dependent origination when approached with mindfulness. Your transportation arrives, marking the final transition from retreat back to regular existence. As you board, you silently reaffirm your intention to carry these teachings forward, not as abstract philosophy, but as lived wisdom illuminating each experience. The vehicle begins moving, monastery mountains gradually receding in the distance. Yet something intangible remains with you, not just memories or concepts, but a fundamental shift in how you perceive reality. Everything happens for a reason, according to conditions. This understanding, once glimpsed, transforms how you relate to all aspects of existence. As your journey continues, villages and fields gradually transition to busier roads and eventually urban environments. The contrast between monastery simplicity and modern complexity grows increasingly apparent: traffic, advertisements, people rushing through complicated lives, technological distractions everywhere. Yet rather than feeling overwhelmed by this transition, you find yourself observing with new awareness. Each element of this complex environment exists for specific reasons according to conditions, the traffic patterns emerging from collective transportation needs, advertisements reflecting economic systems and psychological conditioning, people's hurried movements arising from cultural programming about productivity and time. You notice judgments arising, thoughts about unnecessary complexity or misplaced priorities, but instead of identifying with these judgments, you observe them as additional conditioned phenomena arising from your recent monastery experience, contrasting with current surroundings. This awareness itself demonstrates the teaching in action. Your transportation continues toward your final destination, passing through landscapes shaped by human activity. Even ecological damage, visible in certain areas, reflects dependent origination, harmful conditions created through specific causes, including ignorance, greed, and complex economic pressures. Recognition brings sadness, but also clarity about how different conditions might create more beneficial outcomes. As familiar surroundings appear, signaling imminent return to your regular life, you mentally review key teachings to carry forward. Everything, absolutely everything, happens for specific reasons according to conditions. Suffering arises primarily from resistance to reality as it is, not from circumstances themselves. Understanding dependent origination creates freedom to work skillfully with conditions rather than struggle against them. This understanding naturally cultivates compassion by recognizing how all beings' actions arise from their conditioning. The path involves both accepting what cannot be changed and creating beneficial conditions for what can be transformed. Your transportation arrives at your destination. Stepping back into familiar territory, your home, your neighborhood, you notice how differently you perceive these once ordinary surroundings. Not dramatically altered, but viewed with fresher awareness of how each element exists through specific conditions rather than independent inherent existence. Returning to your living space, you're struck by how objects previously taken for granted as fixed entities now appear more clearly as processes, each possession representing countless conditions coming together temporarily, from raw materials to manufacturing, from economic systems to personal preferences that brought them into your sphere. You place the simple wooden bracelet from the monastery on a small shelf where you'll see it daily, a physical reminder of intangible wisdom. Then, you take 3 conscious breaths, acknowledging this transition back to ordinary life while carrying extraordinary understanding. This return doesn't represent an ending, but a beginning, the start of integrating these teachings into daily existence. The real practice happens not in perfect monastery conditions, but amid life's complex, messy, constantly changing circumstances. Everything happens for a reason, according to conditions. This understanding, once glimpsed, remains available in each moment, a compass for navigating life with greater wisdom, less unnecessary suffering, and more compassionate presence. Three months have passed since your monastery stay. Ordinary life has resumed its rhythm, yet subtle shifts in perspective persist, moments of clarity amid routine activities, instances of equanimity during challenges, expanding capacity to see situations through the lens of dependent origination. You're washing dishes one evening, when awareness suddenly sharpens. The simple activity, warm water, soap, repetitive movement, becomes extraordinarily vivid. You notice how each element exists through specific conditions, water heated by systems depending on infrastructure and energy sources, dishes dirtied through eating food itself, dependent on countless agricultural and distribution factors, your very presence at the sink, resulting from myriad decisions and circumstances stretching back through time. This ordinary moment transforms into direct experience of the teaching. Everything happens for a reason, according to conditions. Not intellectual understanding, but immediate recognition penetrating every aspect of sensory experience. The wooden bracelet from the monastery rests on your wrist, though in this moment you don't need its reminder. Later that week, an unexpected difficulty arises at work. A project fails despite careful planning, creating potential professional consequences. Initial reactions appear automatically: frustration, worry, self-criticism, blame. Yet alongside these responses, new awareness emerges, recalling your teacher's guidance. What conditions led to this situation? You investigate with curiosity rather than judgment, recognizing factors beyond anyone's complete control or foresight. What would happen if you resist this reality? You notice how fighting against what has already occurred creates additional suffering beyond the natural disappointment of unmet expectations. What response would create more positive conditions moving forward? Rather than dwelling in reactivity, you focus attention on skillful next steps, given current circumstances. This approach doesn't magically solve the problem but transforms your relationship with it, creating space for wise response rather than mere reaction, recognizing the situation's conditioned nature rather than taking it personally as failure or punishment. Walking in a local park the following weekend, you observe nature's perfect demonstration of the teaching. Trees grow according to available light, soil, and moisture. Birds build nests using materials at hand. Weather patterns form through complex atmospheric conditions. Nothing happens randomly. Nothing exists independently. Everything manifests through causes and conditions working together. You recall your monastery teacher explaining how enlightenment isn't some distant, exotic state, but clear recognition of reality as it actually is, free from the distortions of ignorance, attachment, and aversion. These moments of clear seeing, however brief, offer glimpses of that realization. Sitting on a park bench, you close your eyes briefly, establishing awareness of breathing, the simple practice recommended for reconnecting with immediate experience when overwhelmed by complexity. 3 conscious breaths center attention in present reality rather than conceptual thinking about reality. Opening your eyes, the world appears simultaneously ordinary and extraordinary, familiar physical forms, recognized as temporary manifestations of ongoing processes, solid-seeming objects, understood as events unfolding, according to conditions. This perception brings unexpected ease, less need to control, judge, or fix what arises when its conditioned nature is clearly seen. That evening, while preparing for sleep, you reflect on how understanding that everything happens for a reason continues integrating into daily experience. Progress doesn't follow a straight line. Some days bring clear insight, others revert to habitual reactivity. Yet even forgetting becomes opportunity for practice when recognized with compassion rather than self-criticism. As sleep approaches, you remember the monastery and feel gratitude for teachings that continue revealing their wisdom through direct application. The understanding that everything happens for specific reasons, according to conditions, isn't abstract philosophy, but practical guidance for navigating existence with greater wisdom and less unnecessary suffering. Sleep comes easily, your breath gradually slowing. Even this transition from wakefulness to sleep happens according to specific conditions: physical fatigue, quieting sensory input, slowing thought patterns, appropriate environment. Nothing random, nothing separate, everything unfolding in perfect accordance with causes and conditions. As we conclude this immersive exploration of Buddhist wisdom, consider how these teachings might illuminate your own experience. The understanding that everything happens for a reason according to conditions doesn't require belief or faith, only careful observation of life as it actually unfolds moment by moment. This wisdom tradition offers not escape from reality but clearer engagement with it, recognizing how suffering arises from resistance to what is, how freedom emerges from working skillfully with conditions rather than fighting against them, how compassion naturally develops when we understand the conditioned nature of all behavior, including our own. Whether you're listening to these teachings while falling asleep or during quieter waking hours, allow this understanding to permeate your awareness. Notice how everything happening right now, external sounds, bodily sensations, arising thoughts, emotional tones, exists through specific conditions coming together in this unrepeatable moment. The path isn't about achieving some perfect future state, but recognizing what's already true about existence. Everything happens for a reason, according to conditions. This simple fact, when deeply understood, transforms how we meet each experience with less resistance, more wisdom, greater compassion, and the profound peace that comes from aligning with, rather than fighting against reality. May these teachings serve your journey toward greater understanding and freedom from unnecessary suffering. May you recognize that everything, absolutely everything, happens for specific reasons according to conditions, and may this recognition bring increasing wisdom to how you navigate this precious human life. Rest now in this understanding, letting it continue working within you, even as conscious awareness transitions towards sleep. Everything happens for a reason. Everything serves your awakening when met with awareness. Everything offers wisdom when approached with clear seeing. Sleep well, resting in the natural unfolding of conditions. Your consciousness and body follow ancient rhythms of rest and renewal, participating in the vast interdependent web of existence. Everything happens for a reason, according to conditions. This understanding remains available whether awake or asleep, offering its transformative wisdom to all aspects of your experience.